Today on Points for Trying, Monorails.
And yes, I am aware that The Simpsons did it first. Hey everyone, welcome back to Points for Tryin. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Jessica.
And together, we celebrate ideas and inventions that were unsuccessful, forgotten, or just plain weird. Trains. You know them, you love them, but they've got some drawbacks. Too many wheels, and too many rails. Now I know what you're thinking. Yeah, that's a monorail. We have monorails. But monorails have to hold tightly onto the track so that they don't tip over. And this means that the track has to be pretty hefty. More like a mono-fail, if you ask me. But in 1903, Louis Philip Brennan had a solution, and it was a self-balancing train using gyroscopes. Now, this part of the script says, explain how gyroscopes work.
It's magic.
The gist of gyroscopes, because they spin around, they have inertia, they want to keep spinning, and, they want to stay in that orientation that they're spinning. So if you try and push it, it'll kind of resist that push, and it'll try to stay upright. There are other better explanations of how gyroscopes work, but I think for this discussion, that's the gist of it.
I like the gist of it.
In all seriousness, this wasn't just a way to save money on steel. There were some advantages to the design. Unlike a regular train, it could lean into turns and therefore take tighter corners. It was also immune to a major problem of the time, hunting oscillations.
What are hunting oscillations? Fam, we're going to learn this together.
This is deep into the lore of railway engineering. But essentially, the wheels on trains are tapered. As you go out, they get a little bit narrower. And that's to kind of keep the train centered onto the tracks. So if it drifts a little bit to the left, it'll naturally get pushed back to the center. And if it drifts a little bit to the right, it'll get pushed back. And this works if the train's not going too fast, but at high speeds, it can start to jitter and oscillate really quickly back and forth.
Is that what causes the shaking on a train?
That's part of what can cause the shaking on a train. If it goes really, really fast, it can actually derail the train.
We have seen that happen. I don't know if that's the cause of it, but we've seen train derailments.
Yeah, the one in Ohio wasn't hunting oscillation. It was broken equipment. But back in the day, this was a real problem, and there was kind of a speed limit on trains that if they went too fast, there would be these hunting oscillations and we'd shake around too much, and it was kind of a problem that hadn't been solved. Modern trains aren't as susceptible to this, so it's not a huge problem now, but back then, a wacky train design that was immune to hunting oscillation was a real benefit.
I like how far we've come. Also, because that was a significant issue for train designers, since trains were such a significant part of travel, that meant that it was a significant issue for the population at large.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we talk about the 50s and 60s and everything is space. I'd say the 1800s, well into the 1900s, everything was trains.
Yeah. I think that trains are beneficial. I wish that we had more of them. I also wish we had more streetcars.
Yeah, love streetcars, love trains. We are a pro-train show. Points for Tryin.
Absolutely.
All right, back to Louis Brennan's train. Brennan built a 6-foot prototype of his train car and a small test track in his yard. The track was made out of metal pipes with intentionally sharp turns, steep slopes, and even a suspension bridge made from wire. And to prove how safe and reliable his gyro train was, he rode it himself in front of a crowd of onlookers. Just kidding, he made his daughter do that instead.
He probably thought, well, if she dies, I can just have another kid. But if I die, nobody's going to finish this invention.
He had to finish that train. He couldn't risk himself. This does follow a very long and storied history on this show of inventors having their kids test things. If you remember episode 3 and those mail delivery tubes.
The pneumatic tubes, yes.
The inventor putting his son into one of the tubes.
Insane, however, really cool for the kid.
Yeah, I think this guy's daughter got it a little better because she's not packed into a tube going underground. But I'm going to show you a picture. She doesn't look like she's having that fun of a time.
She, she looks miserable.
She's in this tiny little cart like the size of a wheelbarrow on the suspension bridge part of his track, which is just a big wire. Uh, and he's like 3 feet away looking at her, and she does not look happy.
No, she really, really doesn't. She also looks like she might be around 10-ish.
Yeah.
And so old enough to know what's going to happen if you fall off.
Yeah, like old enough to be like, I don't want to do this, Dad.
And not so old that she can actually just leave.
Yeah. This was 1903, so maybe she's thinking like, well, it's either this, the linen factory, or the copper mine. But that's just the small prototype. He went full size with this. For a while, the invention attracted some positive attention, including from the UK military. Brennan got the funding to build a full-size prototype in 1909, which could carry up to 15 tons. In 1910, he gave a demonstration ride to a group of 50 people, including none other than Winston Churchill, who spoke very positively about the concept. We don't have records of exactly what Mr. Churchill said, but it was probably something like, "I say, jolly good show, governor. We'll use this to give the French bastards what for."
She.
So the full-size train looks a lot like the small-scale one, but, I mean, it's the size of a modern locomotive, pretty much. It's got this little cab in the front. It's got a platform in the back, almost like a flatbed truck, and it's just got 2 sets of wheels. It's like if you sliced the wheel sets on a regular train in half and just took 2 of them.
That is terrifying. I think you would have to really work to make sure that you had an even balance to the left and the right of the weight.
I mean, it's got the gyroscopes going, but if it was too imbalanced, yeah, it probably would tip over. I don't know how imbalanced it can get before the gyroscopes stop working. Even in some of the pictures, it's like leaning over when it goes into a turn. That would probably be kind of scary if you were riding the train and it tilted a lot.
Have you ever ridden a motorcycle?
Yes.
So you know how you have to lean into the turn or lean away from the turn, or I'm not exactly sure. You have to lean when you're turning.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I rode on the back of a motorcycle, but it feels very similar. Like you would be forced to do something very specific as it goes into a turn. Everybody, all in unison. Ready? 1, 2, 3, lean to the left. 1, 2, 3, lean to the right.
Yeah. And like people ride the train to work and stuff. Like, are you going to spill your coffee?
No, absolutely not. I refuse.
Okay. I would probably spill my coffee because sometimes I do that on regular trains, and they stay flat the entire time. Well, anyway, despite the military's initial interest, Brennan never raised enough funding to build anything beyond the prototypes. Similarly, Winston Churchill eventually became busy with other stuff, as did the rest of the UK and Europe.
I wonder what that could have been.
I guess we'll never know.
So, with this invention, I know we have monorails like at Disney World or growing up in Pennsylvania, Dutch Wonderland. Did we see this come to fruition in any other manner? Like the monorails we have now have a much wider rail that it's on.
Yeah, so, I mean, we have monorails, and they don't use gyroscopes to balance. You know, they just grip the rail, or they're hanging from the rail, or something like that. I don't know of any actual vehicles that use gyroscopes to stay upright, you know, on a single rail.
Right.
There are some modern interpretations of the concept. Here's one I found from a website that was in German, so I don't really know what they were saying, but it shows a video of these like little monorail pods, and the intent is that they're narrow enough that 2 of them can ride side by side on a regular train track. so that one railroad can have service in both directions, which I think is kind of a neat idea.
I think you'd have to be really skinny. I know this one picture has somebody in a wheelchair, but I don't know that that would even be wide enough to have at least a motorized wheelchair. I think it would be too skinny.
Yeah, they're pretty cramped inside, but I guess you wait for the regular train if you can't fit on the monorail.
I have too many bags. I shopped too hard. I have to wait for the regular train.
No.
Shakes their fist at the air.
So I kind of like this idea. There's some obvious downsides. One being it has to be on and powered, and if it loses power, it will fall over. But according to some of the research, because the gyroscope is so heavy, it'll actually stay spinning for a few hours. So it's not like if the engine shuts off, it immediately goes and falls over. So that's actually kind of neat.
Yes, when you said the power has to stay on, that got scary. But knowing that the gyroscope will keep going for a while calmed me down a bit. Okay, I'm back on board.
Yeah, if it's stuck in some remote area and it loses power, like eventually it'll just tip over and someone will have to come by with a tow truck, I guess. But it would stay upright more than long enough for people to get off of it.
That's good.
I feel like if these were common, like one of the pranks would be instead of cow tipping, it would be monorail tipping. And like see if you can tip it onto its side.
Yeah, I don't put it past humans. So, yes, absolutely.
I mean, if I was in high school and these things came about, like one of my friends would be like, "Hey, loser, we're going monorail tipping. Want to come?" Today's episode of Points for Tryin is brought to you by Gyro Sandwiches. Gyros are the perfect food to eat after a long day of inventing. Think about it. Gyroscopes are constantly spinning to stabilize trains, and gyros constantly spin to perfectly roast that delicious mixture of lamb and pork. Gyroscopes need grease for lubrication, and gyros are from grease. So take a trip on a self-balancing monorail to your local cafe and order a gyro. It's bound to take your taste buds for a spin.
So the gyroscopic train came and went without making a big impact on how we get around. But the visionaries of the world hadn't given up on the gyroscope just yet. If people didn't want a gyro train, maybe they'd want a gyro car. In 1961, Ford unveiled the Gyron, a concept car that had two wheels, used a gyroscope to stay upright, and was absolutely dripping with what can only be described as Jetsons energy.
I'm going to show you a picture of this because hell to the yes. This thing is futuristic as hell.
I want that car.
Yes.
I want that.
If that doesn't scream everything is space, I don't know what is.
I like that it basically uses the same vibe as a motorcycle, right? The two wheels, but with a longer base, so it's not as unsteady, and then add the gyroscopes on top of it, less unsteady still.
It's the best of both worlds.
The Ford Gyron was never produced, but in 1967, one of the Gyron's designers teamed up with a rocket expert and started their own company called Gyro Transport Systems. Their first prototype car looked less futuristic than the Gyron, but had an equally on-the-nose name, the Gyro-X.
And this is another everything is space moment, because the two people that teamed up were Alex Tremulis and Thomas Summers. And Thomas Summers was a rocket/missile expert that knew about gyroscopes because they're used in missile navigation systems.
Of course they are.
So once again, everything is space.
Everything is space. The supposed advantages of a two-wheeled car were similar to those of the gyro train. It would be more stable, less likely to skid, and narrow enough that you could fit two of them side by side on a regular road. Its slender shape would also cut down on air resistance, meaning that even with an 80 horsepower motor, it was both fuel efficient and fast.
I am going to quote from hackaday.com that had an article about the Gyro-X. Though the Gyro-X could do 120 miles per hour, it probably shouldn't have. Apparently, it became unstable if you went over 70 miles an hour.
Did they actually make prototypes and put it out there and try?
Oh, there was. There was one prototype built. Now, you notice the two wheels in the center like a motorcycle, and it does have more wheels. It actually has 6 total. 2 sets of little tiny outriggers that are basically the size of training wheels on a bike. And those are just so that it can balance when it's not on.
Oh.
Because as we talked about in the train, if the engine's not running, the gyroscope isn't spinning, and it would just tip over. So they thought of that, and they have these little wheels that lower when it turns off.
Yeah, I don't think a kickstand would have done much good.
Love the cherry red of the paint job. It almost looks like a tiny El Camino because it's got that front cab and then what looks like a little pickup truck shaped trunk.
You know I love me an El Camino. Unfortunately, the world's appetite for gyro cars wasn't any higher than it was for gyro trains. By 1970, Gyro Transport Solutions was out of business, and the only Gyro-X prototype was turned into a 3-wheeler to make it street legal in California. Today, the Gyro-X resides in the Lane Motor Museum, who purchased it in 2011 and lovingly restored it to its original 2-wheeled condition.
Fun fact, they actually had to go through a lot of work to replace the gyroscope because, well, really big gyroscopes aren't a common item that you can just get from Home Depot. So they actually purchased it from a company that makes them for yachts.
Yachts use gyroscopes?
Yeah, apparently some yachts have gyroscopes that stabilize them so they don't slosh back and forth in waves.
I'm not rich enough to own a yacht. My friends are not rich enough to own yachts. So if I ever do get on a yacht, I'll check that out and see.
And if any of those mattress companies are listening right now, sponsor us so that we can get on a yacht and figure out if they have gyroscopes in them.
Or if anybody listening has a yacht and wants to let us on. We're nice people.
So I do want to mention a downside of the Gyro-X, and starting it up takes 3 entire minutes because the gyroscope has to start going and spin fast enough to keep the car upright. So that's probably something that would have hindered the adoption of this car if it went on sale.
You definitely could not use it as your getaway car.
Other than that, looks pretty cool. I like the idea that you can fit them side by side on a single road, but you probably shouldn't have done that, and that probably would have become illegal if these cars sold in big numbers.
Are they saying that you could put them side by side in one lane of the road? Because as I understand it, today we can drive 2 cars on one road.
Yeah, they mean it's essentially half the width of a regular car. So in one lane, you could drive them side by side.
I see. It might be good in places like California with I-5 or Washington, D.C. with any of the roads.
I don't think I trust people enough to try and weave through a single lane and that sort of... I feel like that's a recipe for disaster.
It's not smart.
I have to say that this idea is kind of neat, but at the end of the day, most of its benefits also apply to motorcycles. You know, motorcycles don't stand up on their own, but they do when they're moving. And, well, when they're not, you just put your feet down. So if you want a really aerodynamic, fuel-efficient vehicle that can zigzag through traffic, just buy a motorcycle.
That's what I'm saying.
And in fact, Honda has added self-balancing technology to one of its motorcycles.
Are they using gyroscopes?
Sadly, it doesn't use gyroscopes. What it does is it has like motors in it that twist the wheel back and forth to kind of keep it balanced.
That's neat.
It's actually a video of it driving itself, which is neat.
Until it's like a horse without its rider that just comes back to the barn. You know, your motorcycle without its rider comes back to the store or house or whatever Where's Timmy? He fell off 3 miles back.
Now I want to see like some super modern Western where all the cowboys are on these self-balancing motorcycles, and when they get shot, the motorcycle like rides into town to warn everybody.
I love it. All right, it's that time. Does it get points for trying? So we're going to start with the gyro train, the monorail.
Well, thanks to Louis Brennan, shall we say, recruiting his daughter to test one of the self-balancing monorail prototypes, I am going to give it a point for getting women involved in science and engineering.
Love that. Love that for her journey. I'm pretty sure after that event, she did not want to go into science and engineering, but you never know.
And it gets another point for being a train, and we love trains.
We do indeed. Okay, for me, it gets a point because it was taking an actionable step towards solving a problem that they legitimately had. We had this problem of the hunting oscillation, and it took an intellectual step forward towards resolving that issue. It wasn't what ended up working, but it was functional. People were on those gyro trains on the monorails, and they were actually standing there and going someplace. So I think it could have worked, possibly, with some more research and development. I also think that it gets a point for being able to take really tight corners, because that is something that would be really beneficial in very built up areas. So it would be something that you could use in more locations.
As someone that used to live in Boston, there's some pretty tight turns on some of the subway tracks. And since they're just regular trains, when they go through the tighter turns, the wheels scrape and squeal, and it's the most annoying sound I've ever heard. And if we had self-balancing monorails, they would just lean right into the curves.
That sounds awful from a perspective of someone who has pretty sensitive ears. That doesn't sound like something I would enjoy.
Go to Boston and ride the Green Line, and I guarantee you'll hate it.
Oh, good. I'll get right on that. Okay. All right. The gyro cars.
I'm going to give specifically the Gyro-X a point. I love that in its new restored version, it has a gyroscope from a yacht. And I love that technology from a yacht is inside something that's kind of the exact opposite of a yacht. You know, one's a really big boat, and this is a really small car.
Is that just 1 point or 2?
I think that's 1 point.
I see. Okay. Got it.
It gets another point because one amazing fact I didn't mention is Alex Tremoulis, one of the creators of the Gyro-X. He started his career in the Air Force, and he actually did work on flying saucers.
Everything is space.
Everything is space. Everything is trains. It's all connected. I think we are building a Points for Tryin cinematic universe. Sadly, it does get -1 point for not being a train.
Okay. For me, I want to take a point away for it basically just being a motorcycle.
Fair enough.
That would leave it with 0 points, and I don't know that that's possible.
Okay, I'm going to give it a last-minute point. Point to the Lane Motor Museum for doing such an amazing job on its restoration.
Here, here. So, gyro trains, the monorail, 4. Gyro cars, 1. Because we love the Lane Motor Museum and how they restored it. The bottom line is, if you want a gyro car, just go get a motorcycle.
And if you want a gyro train, sadly, you're out of luck. But if you want a gyro, go to your nearest Greek restaurant.
That's all for today. Thanks for listening. And as always, if at first you don't succeed, tell us about it.